Okay, so what are the tools that you're going to need to do this? I'm going to turn that off because it just makes everything so bright. Um, you should have a piece of a watercolor paper, and that's really thick. So I gave you the drawing paper and I gave you watercolor paper. So you can kind of see the difference here. It's pretty stiff compared to your drawing paper, which is pretty bendy. You're going to need at least 2 pieces of the drawing paper to do your object drawings on, and then you're going to need a piece of watercolor paper that you're going to glue your drawings to. I have a glue stick, so that was one of the things that you needed to kind of gather up on your own. Either a glue stick or Elmer's glue or any type of glue in your house that you can use is fine. You're going to need a pair of scissors, doesn't matter what size, and some drawing tools, so your drawing pencils, and some way to kind of make your object more graphic. So maybe like a Sharpie or dark, I wouldn't use crayon, but like colored pencils or pen or some type of dark marker to kind of give it an outline. Maybe like a dark colored pencil. And then your object, okay? So you're going to take your drawing paper, and you're probably going to need 2, so you can do 10. And first thing you're going to do is just very simply sketch out your object. I would try to maybe fit 5 on one sheet. So if you wanted to, you could even divide up your page into sections. And remember, you could vary, let's do 6, I guess. You can vary the size of your boot. It doesn't have to be the same size every time you draw it. Okay? So I'm just going to sketch it. I'm going to just do kind of a sort of a generic boot outline here. Now we're not going to make these too complicated, right? Because remember that basketball? Super simple. So get the outline. And then think about the details in your object that make it look like your object. Probably going to need an eraser as well. So definitely we need tread for a hiking boot. So if I'm going to know this is a hiking boot, I'm probably going to want like a thick tread line. And then maybe even like some of these guys, right? To make it look like a boot, hiking boot. And then of course the really thick lace on a hiking boot. So I could do like these little bolts. I could do a few of those. Remember, we don't want to make it too complicated. We're just trying, part of kind of being a graphic artist is to learn how to create a very simple image that's very clear to the viewer what we're looking at. So I'm going to make some edits here. I don't like those laces. I'm going to start that over. And that's what you can do if you don't like something. Just make a decision about it and redraw it. Not everything you draw the first time is going to be what you want. I think it needs to be thicker here. And maybe like a nice bump like right there. Okay, and then I'm going to just make these laces a lot more graphic. I think I'm just going to kind of have it come around like that and then go up over like that. And then maybe one there and maybe one more. Maybe one right there. And then I have to have that shape that holds it. Okay, and then I could do maybe one more detail that's like a line that kind of divides the boot up. Maybe one more right here. Okay, so that's pretty simple. Let me let that zoom in there. Okay, so that's just my sketch of it. So now I need to make the lines thicker and more graphic. So I'm going to take my Sharpie here and I'm just going to thicken up those lines. A graphic drawing is high contrast, which means that you're going to have a lot of dark and light in it so that you could see it from a distance. So I'm going to thicken up these lines. So knowing what you have to do now, you might want to choose an object that's simpler than what you were thinking originally. Right? Like for example, Skylar's dragons are really cool, but you're gonna have to work really hard to kind of make that dragon really simple. You could do it. You're just gonna have to, you know, come up with a simple version of that dragon. I'm gonna make these a little bigger, kind of more obvious. This is reminding me of I went to Arches National Park a few years ago in the middle of winter, and we hiked around in the snow. And I didn't have any snow hiking boots, so I bought these things that attached onto my regular hiking boot that were metal, and they helped me grip the ice and the snow a little bit better. But they were always filling up with snow. It drove me crazy. My friend always had to stop and get a stick and pick the snow out of them. They were really not the best. But at the time I didn't realize that I would even need that. So I learned something there. Okay, I'm going to make the laces all black, and I'm going to make these shapes all black just to simplify. If I ever do that hike again, I will definitely buy some snow hiking shoes. Okay, so this is, as you can see, this is going to take you some time because this is just my first one, and I need 10. But once I do my first one, I think it'll be easier to do the other ones. And if you have like tracing paper, you could trace it. You could find a way to find some kind of like see-through paper. Like if I used my printer paper and I maybe put light behind it, I could probably trace. I could trace it. So if you see a little ring light here, now I can kind of, you guys can't see it, but now I can kind of see through it, and I can trace that shoe over and over again. Cut it out. Okay, so now that I have this, what can I do to redraw it and create variety, right? So let's think about that for a second. I could change the color, so I could do it not in black, but I could do it in a different color. I could change the size. I could change the thickness of the line. I could change the shape of the boot. I really could do it any way I want. So I think what I'm going to do is a smaller version of the boot and maybe block it into some color. So now I kind of have that general shape of the boot. And I have the things that make it look like a boot. And it'll be fun to have each one slightly different. See how fast I did that one now that I had this one done already? And I could take some color. So I'm not sure what you have that's color, but maybe instead of outlining it all in black, I could fill in this blocks with colored pencil color instead. Okay, so each one just has to be slightly different. And I would continue, maybe add some more colors and block it in. All right, so once you do this, then you're going to cut them out. First I would cut them out, just cut the whole thing out. Don't worry about cutting it up yet. And I'm not going to get really detailed with the cutting because I'm putting it on white paper, so it doesn't really matter. So pretend I made 10 of these.
Are we using our thick paper for this?
You're using your drawing paper for this part, and then you're going to glue it onto your thick paper.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because after we glue it all on, we're going to be painting over top and around these symbols with acrylic paint. So we need that watercolor paper to hold the paint. Okay, so you're going to have 10 objects, and you're going to have your watercolor paper. Now what do we do here? We go back to our principles of design and we choose one. Okay, so I might choose, I think I'll choose asymmetrical balance. Okay, so now this is the fun part. You can really play around with the placement of your shoes. They could even overlap each other, right? So asymmetrical balance means it's visually weighted the same on both sides, but it's not identical. Okay, there's some different shapes. And then I can also, I don't have to keep these as they are. I can cut them up. Like I could cut the toe off of that and I could move it over here. And all of a sudden, I've got an element of the boot, but now I have a really interesting design here that maybe doesn't even really look like a boot. And maybe I do kind of the same thing over here. Okay, so for now I'll probably demonstrate on Friday. I think I'll extend this due date. I don't think you guys are going to finish this by beginning of class Friday. So I'm going to do another demo on Friday that shows you really how to place all these. So for today, your goal is to not glue anything down yet and deal with that. All I want you to do is work on making your objects graphic and working on the different variations of them. Okay, so that's what you're working on today. Okay, any questions?